I'm Alan Grisby from the Strange and Unusual podcast, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
This is it. The part of your week where you get to put your headphones on, relax, and listen to a bunch of geeks geek out about geeky things. They're passionate.
Did you know Magic Mike XXL is actually on the top 25 list of this year's best movie?
They're witty.
He loves him some Katy Perry because she kissed a girl and she liked it.
They're crazy.
I like Nickelback personally, but, I'm the fuddy-duddy who likes episode 1.
And sometimes they leave you wondering, what the f***?
I'm pretty sure that here we were starting the hashtag movement, bring back Slave Ferrell.
Welcome to the GonnaGeek.com podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 146 of the official GonnaGeek.com podcast. My name is Stephen Jondrew, and with me today is JS.
Please address me as Botimek Botyface in protestation.
We also have the one and only Chris Ferrell.
Now that SP's back, I don't have to like Nickelback or episode 1 anymore.
That's true. And taking that last seat is indeed the return of Suncast. SP, how's it going, SP?
I am back, and you can start the party again. SP's in the house. Woohoo!
Did you guys see the poll that people like Nickelback more than Trump?
I am in no way surprised at that at all.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's really funny. So if you are checking us out today live, that we are usually at geeks.live every Monday at 5:45 p.m. Pacific time. That's 8:45 p.m. Eastern. Really easy to remember. Like I said, geeks.live. You literally put that in your browser, geeks.live. And today, if you like us on Facebook, it might be working on Facebook Live. In theory, it is going out right now, but it's the first time we're trying it. So we hope that it's working. I will say I did a couple of tests and quality is so-so, but hey, you know what? Let's see what happens. SP has agreed as well to watch the chat there because it's not integrated on the YouTube video. So he's going to go ahead and keep an eye on that. I got too much stuff going on, so if nobody responds to you, blame Stargate Pioneer.
Yep, I blame Wing. That is Nightwing at GonnaGeek.com if you have any problems with the Facebook chat.
But seriously, SP, you were away for a couple of weeks, so what is new with you? What is completely new? We feel like we need a Stargate Pioneer report.
A Stargate Pioneer report. Well, I made it back to the gym today because, I was working out in the hotel gym, and those are never quality places to work out. And, it was interesting to be back because people were looking at you like you were slacking off for a week. Well, no, I wasn't slacking off. I was traveling for work. Get out, leave me alone. I did the best I could. I'm just SP.
That is good to hear. Good to hear. And I say it's good to hear. You know why I say it's good to hear? Because
I'm here.
I don't work out. And the more flack that you get for working out, the better that I feel. By the way, I totally dropped the ball here. Sorry to derail you here. We also are live on Alpha Geek Radio. That's another great service. There's lots of different podcasts on there, and it's an alternative way that you can check out a variety of live shows. And we do stream on there as well on Channel 1. So if you got the Alpha Geek Radio set up, you can check us out there. We are just making a mess all over the place.
We're taking over the internet, one streaming location at a time. That's the plan. Eventually, we're going to spread everywhere like a virus, and you're just going to see Gonna Geek stuff everywhere.
I have to say, by the way, that I am really, really quickly beginning to see why usually people have a dedicated box for a broadcast, the actual broadcast transmission box. I see why that's important.
Is your PC about to explode, Steven?
I'm sitting at 71% CPU right now, 23% memory, hey, not bad, 1% disk, and only 2% network. Why is that? Because my internet provider sucks on the upstream. So there you go.
Yeah.
So what about the heat, though? That's what's really going to kill you, right? The heat? You got a heat monitor on the chip there?
No, but I actually literally have it knee length, and I can feel it getting nice and toasty, so that's good. That's good.
Y'all need your nice and toasty fireplaces in your igloos up there in Canardia.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and go into
it looks like my shirt's like having issues with pixelization.
That's true. If you do check out the video version, which you can find at geeks.link/146, you'll actually see that, yes, JS's shirt, it's like spotted and the camera is not tracking very well. So it's kind of all blurry. It's psychedelic, or it could be that acid that JS dropped before the show. One of the two.
Disco JS. That's what it is. Disco JS. I'm liking it. You got the Travolta effect going.
That's good. That's good. All right. So before we do dive into our news stories for the week, I'm going to remind you that, believe it or not, and I know this is very surprising, but the GonnaGeek.com show is indeed part of the Gonna Geek Network. What? Who would have thunk it?
Not me.
What's the GonnaGeek.com network?
Well, the GonnaGeek.com network is a variety of geeky podcasts, and one of them is called All Things Good and Nerdy. And in episode 210, titled In the Mood for Dude, Naki runs down her experience at BookCon, Chris has news on the fate of Supergirl, and Willie brings up the future plans that Disney have for Disney Infinity. Of course, there is also spoiler-filled Marvel Civil War. All sorts of goodness in there, lots of discussion. And you can check all of that out at geeks.link/ATGN210. Alrighty. What do we got going on with this first news point? The title is Snow White and the Seven Retracted. I'm confused.
That's right. Exactly. It is Snow White. It's Snow White, and it's because it's a dwarf planet. It's one of the biggest dwarf planets we're finding. I don't know if you want to know what a dwarf planet is. It has to do with size, relative relations, whatever. If you want to know what happened with Pluto, it is technically considered a dwarf planet. The scientist in me has to say it's technically a dwarf planet, but no, it's not a proto-planet. It's not a dwarf planet. It is a real planet. So screw everybody else and thinking Pluto's a dwarf planet. But Snow White is way out there. It is orbiting the Earth, the sun. It takes like 500 and some odd years for it to orbit the Earth. And they've done some more particular measurements on it. And as you know, there's a lot of huge balls of rock out in the solar system. And if you get out beyond the 8 main planets, then you start getting into some larger masses that are orbiting out there, comets, asteroids, whatever. Well, when you get to a certain size, it's called a dwarf planet. Now, Snow White happens to be right now the 3rd biggest dwarf planet in the solar system. Now, Pluto's number 1 on their list. It's not even on my list. So it's really if you want to see the Snow White, it's really the 2nd biggest dwarf planet out there. Eris is the 2nd biggest, just by a couple of miles. So Pluto is 1,475 miles in diameter. Eris is 1,445 miles. And the latest measurements that we can possibly get from Snow White, which isn't officially named, by the way, its official name is 2007 OR sub 10. And whatever, we'll just call it Snow White. It is 955 miles wide. And then the next one down is kind of an egg-shaped planet, and it goes from 1,195 long to 615 miles wide, so it beats it out. And that's it. So we have all this great stuff going on in the outer solar system, and the I believe it was the Kepler Space Telescope took images of it, and it was remember Kepler? You guys remember Kepler? We talked about Kepler before, the Planet Hunter.
Oh, did you talk
Indeed.
about it or did somebody else? Because if it was you, no memory of that.
Ouch.
Right. All right. So what the thing is we've actually started to get some measurements, and these things are so faint, they're so far out that it's hard to get exact measurements. If you take a look at the New Horizons photo of Pluto, for example, in comparison to what was available just a few years ago, radically different. And that's the sort of information that we're able to get with our ground and space-based telescopes on the other dwarf planets. By the way, the fifth biggest protoplanet or dwarf planet is 890 miles across, and its name is Make. So Make is my new favorite dwarf planet, just because of the name, Make.
Is that like I want to make it with you? Is that what?
It's whatever you want to make it with.
Oh my.
Make.
That sounds scandalous, and I love it.
It is.
It is. So there was other space news that occurred, just to hit a couple of things really quick here. There was a plane-based telescope called SOFIA, SOFIA, and SOFIA actually detected oxygen on Mars. So if you're interested in that, go check that one out. And then finally, y'all knew that, I talked about it before I left, that Mercury was scheduled to transit in front of the sun on last Monday. Well, I was actually driving last Monday, and I thought that would be a great time to just pull over to the side of the road and watch Mercury transit. Well, guess what? It was cloudy all over the eastern United States. I'm like, oh my good. So I missed Mercury's transit, and I had to watch it in photos later. Dang you, weather.
So you mean like transitioning, like how Bruce Jenner became Caitlyn Jenner? Is that what you're talking about? Mercury switch gender? Is that?
That's exactly the sort of make transition that we're talking about.
So send your hate mail to Steven and Stargate Pioneer at gonnageek.com, because whenever we touch on cultural hot topic issues, someone is sure to get offended on the internet. So again, Steven at gonnageek.com and Stargate Pioneer at gonnageek.com. That's where the mail goes.
Do we get hate mail? How do I never get hate mail?
I do not deserve hate mail because I was all inclusive of that. I said it's whatever you want it to be. So it's whatever you make it to be. That was pretty tolerant.
I'm sure you've offended someone somewhere because it's on the internet. So if the hate mail comes in, please send it there. And no, Jess, we don't really get much hate mail right now. I'm sure
How
that
am I
will
not
change.
getting hate mail? That's weird. That's just wrong.
Yeah, the good news is, though, that I've actually got a special place for your hate mail. I'll give you a hint. I print it out. I do one of these. And throw it over there. That's where your hate mail goes, right? Am I right?
No, you need to feed the troll, man. If you don't feed the troll, he starves.
That's true. Well, thank you very much for those news stories, SB. And I do, before we move on here, I want to apologize and offer you my sincere apologies. A couple weeks ago, you spent like 3 hours trying to do a little bit of a video segment on here that we were able to play. I had it all prepared before the show. You can ask these guys. I ended up like, as I do, remembered at the last minute, loaded it all up. We started late, and then Cody Goff went and derailed us. So blame Cody.
Actually, it was more like Steven went, Expletive deleted that SP guy. We're not rolling that crap tonight.
That's pretty much what I understood. Yep.
Yeah. That's a little inside the podcaster studio here for you guys.
Steven, there might be a package delivered to your door.
Okay.
It's meant for you and you personally, so don't let your boys or your wife open it. It's meant for you.
You don't want his wife to play with your package?
I actually got the package today, and how did you know that I love baking soda? That's right. Anthrax callback. What?
Wow, welcome back to 2011 or maybe even 2001.
All right, well, Steven's gonna go ahead and get hyper for Hyperloop. That's right. Steven is going to talk all about the Hyperloop project. If you're not familiar with Hyperloop, the idea is that it is a theory of a way that we can travel more efficiently and faster. Essentially, it uses magnetic polarized items and blah, blah, blah. It uses magnets to make things levitate, thus less friction, and you go faster. So it has been an interesting theory. The idea with the Hyperloop, though, is that you need a huge, massive tube. But if you can successfully do this, I believe it's like looking at speeds of somewhere in the neighborhood of like 300 miles an hour, something really fast like that. And it would be, does anybody know exactly how fast they're theorizing you could go with a Hyperloop?
Well, I know how fast they went today.
Well, we're going to get there.
Oh, okay.
Hella fast.
Yeah. So the
As
idea,
fast as the Flash.
So the idea is that they are aiming for 400 miles per hour, but they did indeed do a short test, a very, very small test on the concept. It was I believe it was a 3-mile track that they did, and they were able to achieve 2G force. SP, what does that equate to, 2G?
That's double your weight. So basically, the normal force of gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. So you just double that, and that makes your weight double. So for you would go from 250 pounds to 500 pounds.
Yeah, so the long story short is that they have taken the first step in a very good test, and they do want to eventually hit 400 miles per hour in 2 seconds, but we'll see where they go. They do have their short steps, right? They want to have a certain target for the end of the year and then expand from there. I love this technology. When I first heard about it, I thought this would be terrific, and it would just be, my opinion, I think a lot of ways, and remember, I am not a safety expert, but in my ways, I think once it has been used and developed and everything, I think it would be a hell of a lot safer than air travel.
It could be, but at the same time, you're going to have some of the same worries of air travel as you've got to deal with TSA and things like that. I mean, they were talking about another podcast I listened to. What's really cool is Hyperloop would basically make it so within 30 minutes, you could go between San Francisco and Los Angeles, which is ridiculous. It's a 50-minute flight.
Right, but you'd have to keep the...
Where would you put it, though? Where would you put it? That's the major problem.
Some people say underground. Some people say just barely above ground.
Sure. I guess they'll use the secret government tunnels that are underground. I mean, we have problems building a road.
Right. That's what I was just going to get to. Yeah.
It's insane. The infrastructure problems this would cause. I mean, look at the traffic that it causes to divert a highway of not even 500 feet. Where are you going to put this thing?
But
you're going to have to.
The thing is, you got to remember, if it comes to be, you're not looking at substituting roadways. You're looking at massive infrastructure changes outside of the main urban area. You're not going to put this downtown. You're going to put this outside of town.
You're going to take a plane to the Hyperloop and then the Hyperloop down Saskatchewan and Alberta and then get on a plane again?
The same way that a lot of airports and cities are not right downtown. They're outside. You drive to the airport. You would drive to the Hyperloop.
Sure, but then again, I mean, so much. I don't know. We have problems maintaining. We have problems maintaining an infrastructure right now. Just consider the bridges that are needed. They're going to be necessary to cross these vast distances. There'll be bridges. There'll be water on the way. I think this is a long way.
Well, I never said it was going to happen because, when you're down there, Chris and SP, when Trump ruins all of North America, we won't have a chance.
You're part of North America.
You could put it on the wall. We could put it on top of that wall once they build it.
In all honesty, this is just a proof of concept at this point. They're working on proving the concept. I don't really think it's practically feasible anytime soon. But if you can prove the concept works, that's when you get those rich investors that go, maybe there's money to be made here, or maybe we can do another proof of concept that is an actual Hyperloop track that passengers can ride between, say, San Francisco and Los Angeles, and start to prove the proof of concept. Remember, airplanes were at one point in time pie in the sky we never thought was going to happen. I'm not saying this is the same as airplanes, but it's just a good analogy to say, hey,
don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the technology is not possible. I'm just saying the infrastructure requirements of laying down that much rail. And I mean, I know about laying rails because I've laid rails down on Stephen's mom often, you know. But what I'm saying is, it's going to be hard. It will. They're going to build this new train in Montreal that connects the airport to downtown, and nobody knows how they're going to do it. They say they're going to do it in 4 years, but it's going to take like 15 years. They can't even build a highway here without like taking 20 years. I don't see it. It's great technology. I think it's a great invention. We just got to figure out a way.
Yeah.
Where are we going to put it? I really think that's where the main problem.
The thing
lies.
is, the idea with the Hyperloop, though, since they first kind of came up with it, is that more than likely, if it practically becomes possible, what will happen is they'll start with cargo transportation. And so I think then you're going to start to see the private companies come in, and there would be something that would come together and offer a bunch of companies exclusive use of this. And so then you'll see shorter term Hyperloops made and then expand out from there. I personally don't think that we're seeing people travel for a very, very long time, if it ever even gets to that level. But even if theoretically it ends up being, or it actually possibly becomes a success and can actually work, I think we're at cargo a long time before we're ever with people.
Oh, sure. No doubt. I mean, and for those that are trying to wrap their head around what exactly Hyperloop is, think the tubes in Futurama that you see people flying through in the cities. For lack of a better term, this is something similar, but without like the up and down motion, things like that, where you actually ride in a metal car that is suspended via magnetic levitation. So it's not quite the same as like you're going on a railroad track and flying across the country. You're going in a tube.
I got it.
Steel tube.
I got it. Here's your first people. It's podcasters, because then you can podcast in person. It'll be the Gonna Geek Hyperloop. We'll be the first ones. We'll get together each week and podcast together.
No.
Quick half-hour trip back home and we're good.
No.
Half hour. Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm not riding in an enclosed metal.
Yeah, it'll be a little longer than that. So I agree with JS. So the Earth shifts, right? You have earthquakes, especially because we're fracking, and which is an oil industry term, where you're drilling from the side and getting out stuff from different ways, and it causes earthquakes. And we've experienced a lot more earthquakes in the eastern United States because of fracking. And because of that, you have to go out, and these things travel extremely fast. And if the track is off by a little bit, you're going to jump the track. And even if you're in an enclosed metal tube, it's going to be game over here. It's not going to work. So I do have issues with the infrastructure. If a freaking butterfly is on the wrong part of the track, it's just not going to work. So all that said, I have the perfect use for this technology. So a few years ago, I read a story about an enclosed metal tube running from the United States or North America all the way over to England underwater. So I think in a big glass container. So just like you have those like Rocky Mountain Amtrak things, I think this would be great to go in an enclosed metal tube at 400 plus miles an hour to see all the marine life just pass you by, just whoosh. I think that would be the best use of the technology. And as far as feasibility, no, that's not going to happen either.
Are you really going to be able to see the life at 400 miles an hour?
I see things really quickly. My reflexes are really quick.
Okay. So what we learned from this news article then is that everybody thinks it's a long time away. Everybody thinks that there's a bunch of problems, and that JS railed my mom and SP fracked my mom. So that's what we learned.
So before we move on, Suncast is asking, so how would you escape if need be? i.e., if there's a power failure and everything just stopped. My solution: you all
don't.
die.
No, not a chance.
Game over, man.
Yeah.
Game over.
In all fairness, yeah, we could argue some things about emergency situations on planes too, because not really a great solution for that either.
But if you've listened to
got doors, you can jump out and look at, what was it, Iron Man 2 or 3? I mean, Iron Man comes and saves you, right? I mean, you've got that. You've got Supergirl that saved the plane in the Supergirl
Superman.
pilot. Spoilers, it's Superman. I mean, there's lots of things that could save you in an airplane.
Because remember what Brandon Routh and Christopher Reeve has both taught us about airplanes in their Superman movies. It's statistically, it's still the safest way to travel.
That's true. And before we do hit on Chris's news here, Dane in the chat has, he summarized it. He says Trump will make it work. So there you go. There you go.
It's gonna be huge.
All right. So Chris, you were super excited. You wanted to bet your pants, but now you cannot bet your pants. What's up?
I really wish I knew how you got the titles for all of my stories when we do a podcast. It's always interesting for me to look at it and go, Chris can't bet his pants. What? Do you have a fixation on my pants, sir?
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Fair enough. That's a good answer.
Why does he even, why you're podcasting? Why are you even wearing pants? You're not supposed to be wearing pants.
They're pajama pants. They're comfortable. Just saying.
All
So
right. What do you got, Chris?
My news story comes courtesy of The Guardian, where, you know, people like to bet on all sorts of stuff, and they have now officially suspended bets on who is going to be the next James Bond. So you might be going, well, I thought Daniel Craig was James Bond. Well, I guess supposedly he's still under contract for one more movie, but when he was doing the press junket for Spectre, he kind of had a quote where he's asked if he'd come back, and he goes, I'd rather break this glass and slash my wrists. So it seems like Daniel Craig probably not coming back as James Bond. So if you've been paying attention, you might have heard a couple other names thrown around for potential Bond replacements, first being Idris Elba and then also Damian Lewis. Well, that is not, in fact, who the bettors think it's going to be. There's a flurry of bets that have been taking place, and right now, about a week ago, the 2-1 favorite to be the next James Bond was one Tom Hiddleston. You might know him as Loki from the Marvel movies, or if you've been watching The Night Manager on AMC, you might know him as the spy Jonathan Pine on there. So, supposedly Tom Hiddleston had a meeting with Sam Mendes, who's the director of the last two Bond movies, and Barbara Broccoli, who's a producer for the company that owns the rights to Bond. After that, the odds for him being James Bond, according to this betting website, dropped from 2-1 to 1-2. So they have officially suspended betting because the bettors and the bookies think it is a done deal that Tom Hiddleston will be the next James Bond. So I have to ask you, gentlemen, do you buy Tom Hiddleston as Bond?
Oh, absolutely. I think that he's going to do a terrific job because you have to disconnect Loki, right? Like Loki it's a really good showcase of what he can do. But when you start to explore some of the other stuff, you see the great dynamic person that he is acting wise. And I think he will not nail it. I think he'll nail it. I was going to say knock it out of the park, but then I went with nail it because we were talking about nailing people. So
He's going to have to spend a little time in the weight room. But other than that, he'll be fine.
How about you, JS? You're a big Bond fan.
Well, there's been a lot of skinny Bonds. I mean, which one was it? The one where he only did one Bond. He was the most hated Bond. Timothy Dalton.
Oh.
I mean, Timothy Dalton wasn't a very, very muscular man. He got away with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't think Daniel Craig was going to make a great James Bond until I saw the Casino Royale.
I am so glad you brought it up because, yes, I remember this very clearly. A lot of people criticized Daniel Craig.
I mean, Daniel Craig looked like a fridge back in the days. I mean, he still looks like a fridge. James Bond's
a blonde
not supposed
Bond?
to be a
What?
fridge.
Everybody nitpicked every little thing you could about him, and he's done a terrific job.
Yeah, he has. I agree.
He has, and I think Tom Hiddleston could also do a very good job. I mentioned it in the story. There's a 6-episode miniseries airing on AMC right now. It's called The Night Manager. That is kind of like a spy espionage thriller miniseries. It's got Tom Hiddleston and Hugh Laurie as the two leads. It is very good, and Hiddleston plays a character by the name of Jonathan Pine, who is pretty much in deep cover with an arms dealer, trying to break up this arms dealing ring from inside. And it is your first taste of him as a spy. And after seeing that, I can see him pull off the whole spy thing. I would love to see some of the action scenes he'd get to do in a Bond movie. And just think, if you're Tom Hiddleston, you're in 2 giant franchises if this happens. You're in the Marvel Universe. You're Loki, probably definitively, some would say, the best villain in the MCU right now. And you get to take over the role of James Bond, which is one of the most iconic roles in cinema.
Agreed.
So if you're Tom Hiddleston, do you want to be James Bond or do you want to be Doctor Who?
James Bond.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
Yeah, James Bond. Man, Doctor Who has not made anybody's careers ever, except like name me one Doctor Who doctor that's done anything but Doctor Who and then just done the convention circuit forever.
Eccleston.
Yeah, he's
There's your
I'll
one.
admit he's doing a little bit better, but he's the only one. There's
Well, you should have said name 2, JS. You should have said name 2.
There's
Tenet.
13. Tenet started as a better actor. It's not going to make his career. It ain't going to give him a better job.
Right.
He's already won an
I'm not saying that Tom Hiddleston's going to make his career being Doctor Who. I'm like, if you're Tom Hiddleston, do you want to do James Bond or do you want to do Doctor Who?
I will argue that your scope of fandom and awareness is much higher on Bond than Doctor Who.
Worldwide?
Yes, worldwide, hands down.
I would argue with that. I think Doctor Who's more of a worldwide figure than James Bond is.
You haven't
No,
been
you
able
are
to...
100% incorrect.
Yeah, there's not a chance, because here's the thing is I have done podcasts now with you 3. I've done them back on the Fanboy Buzz, and it was always the minority was interested in Doctor Who and regularly watched it. And it's the same with this. JS, do you watch Doctor Who regularly?
Not anymore.
No.
The last season, just not interested in me
Chris,
at all.
you don't either, right?
I watched Torchwood.
Yep. SP does. I do not. It's there is passionate Doctor Who fans, but I will argue very quickly with anybody who says the Doctor Who appeal is higher than James Bond.
I'm not saying Doctor Who's a bad show or anything by that stretch of the imagination. It's more, if you are James Bond, you are worldwide. Everyone's going to know who you are because you're going to be on TV. You're going to be doing the talk show circuit. You're going to be on commercials for your movie that is arguably going to make millions, maybe even billions of dollars on a worldwide scale. It's not discounting Doctor Who. It's just a completely different scale than Doctor Who, I would argue.
High five, Chris, for agreeing. Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily say, and all this being said, we're not Tom Hiddleston. We don't know what he'd want to do if he got offered both roles. Maybe he'd want to do Doctor Who. That's awesome if he does. I still want to see Haley Atwell be Doctor Who, but that's never going to happen. Come on, just close your eyes and imagine it.
Not with the current crop in charge of BBC. Yeah.
Cool. Well, anyways, very interesting, and here's hoping it pans out. Okay, so that is taking us to the end of the news. I just want to remind everybody here, we would love to know what you have to say. You can give us a call at 567-343-GEEK. Tweet us at GonnaGeek. Go to facebook.com/GonnaGeek. And when all else fails, go to geeks.link/146 and comment on the post right there. You can tell us what you think about that. It's back! SP, why don't you tell everybody what you are spacing about today?
Yeah, welcome to SP Space and Symposium. So we've been going over space telescopes to start out with, and we started with the Hubble. and we worked our way through the visual space telescopes with Kepler and the Spitzer Space Telescope. As we moved into the IR realm, we also covered the James Webb Space Telescope that's due to launch in October 2018. Well, today we're going to continue on with the infrared telescopes and talk about the Herschel Space Telescope. Now, what makes Herschel so special? Well, like Hubble was one of the 4 great observatories for NASA, Herschel, even though it was partnered with NASA, was one of the 4 great cornerstone European Space Agency space telescopes. There was 4 of them. There are 4 of them. Herschel, Rosetta, which is orbiting a comet right now, Planck, which is also in the same Lagrange point that Herschel is, and Gaia, which is a great telescope doing a 3D map of the universe so we can go find Luke Skywalker. But in any event, the Herschel Space Telescope was
He's in my backyard, SP.
That's right. With his hand.
Yes.
With his hand in the lightsaber. Yeah. So it was launched on the 14th of May, 2009 from the French Guiana Space Center off of an Ariane 5 rocket. And it is a partnership, like I said, between the ESA and NASA. It was originally called FIRST, for Far Infrared and Submillimeter Telescope. Now, it is important to get up to space with infrared because Earth's atmosphere really degrades any ability to look off into the distance with infrared. It's just at that wavelength where the Earth's atmosphere kind of soaks up all of the light in that band of the electromagnetic spectrum. So getting off to space is great. Well, the problem is you still have light pollution from the sun, you have light pollution from the Earth, so you got to get away from it. And that is why both the James H. Webb and the Herschel space observatories will be orbiting or have been orbiting in the Lagrange L2 point, which is on the far side of the moon away from the sun. So it kind of uses the Earth and the moon as a shield for light pollution against the sun. Now, the other thing, if you remember, as we were going through the Spitzer Space Telescope, that's a problem with this is the instrumentation needs to be extremely cooled. So it has to take the liquid coolant on board, the frozen liquid coolant on board, to get it as close to absolute zero as you can possibly get. And that stuff just boils off over time. So the usage of the telescope is only meant to be so long. And in this particular case, it was meant to be used until 2012. It actually ran out on April 29th, 2013. In that time period, it found water vapor on Ceres. Now, earlier in the podcast, we talked about the dwarf planets in the solar system. Ceres, if you watch the sci-fi recent series, what was that called, JS? The
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I don't know by the one that had the very, very, very scientifically correct, and I'm putting correct between brackets. It's based on a book series.
Yeah, I can't remember. The Expanse. The Expanse.
The Expanse. There you go. Great TV show.
Right. So it was based on the Expanse, or Ceres was in the Expanse, and basically it's the biggest hunk of rock in the asteroid belt. So Ceres will be very important as we go out and explore such areas as the asteroid belt of our solar system. So it found water vapor coming out of that, which will be important if we need to have water there locally. It also found out that water was delivered to Jupiter. Remember way back in the 90s when Comet Shoemaker-Levy impacted Jupiter? It was a big deal because we actually saw a big giant planet get pulverized by a huge asteroid. Well, they determined through observations through the Herschel Space Telescope that water was delivered to Jupiter on board there. And they're summarizing that this is how water actually found its way to Earth, is that it was pummeled, Earth was pummeled by comets, which are asteroids that delivered water. And that's why we have our big oceans that we have today.
Well, the same theory goes for maybe our creation, panspermia.
That's right. And that's why it's so important. So water is very important for the discovery of life, not only here in the solar system, but across the universe. We haven't found it anywhere else. There's a lot of speculation through the Drake equation that it definitely does exist somewhere else, but we haven't found any of it anywhere. So that is why when we search for extraterrestrial life, that we look in the Goldilocks region where water can actually be formed in water, liquid water, and not frozen or boiled off. So that is important of why the Herschel Space Telescope needed to go into space, as well as it's looking at the formation of new galaxies and stars so that they can find those molecular components that can make life-giving substances such as water. And it made a few great discoveries while it was working, and it really proved the concept that you could have a space telescope in the L2 Lagrange point. So, and that is where the James H. Webb is going as well. And it was a great leap forward in the science, and we look forward to even better leaps forward and discoveries as we go forward with more space telescopes. But that's basically the next space telescope in the Space Symposium, Herschel Space Telescope. And next time we do this, I will be getting into some X-ray telescopes, which really get into the beginnings of the universe. So that's going to be a fun conversation to have.
X-rated telescopes? What?
So that's JS can rail your mom. That is what we're talking about.
No, laying pipe down for the hypertube.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Thank you very much for that. Before we do go away from this, though, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
What is your favorite telescope? Because I feel like you've never narrowed it down. We know which ones you hate. I feel like you've never actually nailed it down to your favorite telescope.
Well, it's not in space yet, but the James H. Webb does have vast possibilities. So I'm really looking forward to that one. But, you know, we really haven't gotten to my favorite space telescope. I want to save that for a little bit later. So we'll have to talk about that in the future, Stephen.
Why?
Well, because I have a personal connection to it, and we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Oh, that's a tease, isn't it?
Just like JS teases your mom.
Oh, man. I'm glad I stopped making the mom jokes because these guys have picked that up and they're running with it better than I was doing it. So kudos to both SP and JS for railing on Steven's mom.
You know who wasn't able to pick it up and run with it?
All right, well, let's go ahead and go into the highlight from the website.
Here at the Gonna Geek podcast, we've learned that it's important to recognize our shortcomings. Yes, that means we understand that right about now you're still itching for more geeky content, but you also can't tolerate to hear much more of us. Good news on both fronts, the podcast is almost over, and we want to send you some recommended geeky reading. Here is the highlight from the website.
All right, so on this week's highlight from the website, I want to talk a little bit about a thing called F3G2. It is a video companion to the GonnaGeek.com website. It is one that is rapidly approaching episode 100. What? That
Really?
Dun, dun,
it is indeed.
Wow.
It is indeed. And I'm going to be totally honest here. I don't know that they know that they're approaching episode 100 because they send me the video and I edit it, and the one that just came out this week is episode 98. So very, very cool. And as I say that, I actually think that they might actually be at 99. I'm pretty sure they're at 99 because we missed an episode. I'll double check that. They're at 98, 99, somewhere in there. But it is a quick, like, half hour or so rapid fire comic book review show, and it's done by a guy named Sebastian. He goes to his LCS, his local comic shop, every week. He reads a whole bunch of issues and delivers it from the comic shop. So yes, brick and mortar shops do still exist, and if you want to sort of get a quick picks of what's going on in the comic book world, I encourage you to check this out. It's at geeks.link/F3G2, and I'm pretty sure they're at 99, and I need to rename that episode now that I say that. So very close to 100, but still.
Just edit and post. You'll be okay.
Nope, not going to edit. Much easier to admit my mistake on here. But seriously, congratulations, guys. I know that this podcast will come out just before you hit 100, so amazing job. That's a lot of comic book reviews, a lot of crappy issues along the way as well.
So, quarter bet, do we think they're going to realize they're at 100 when they submit to you? Quarter bet.
No, I don't think so. Probably because I screwed up the numbering.
you tricked them. That's why I'm saying no,
Yeah.
because you've messed with
robbed
their
them
brains.
of their ability to celebrate a century of podcasts.
Oh,
Way to
hold
go,
on, breaking
Network
news.
Owner.
Breaking news here. I did not mess it up. The video is there was one video we had to take down because of some variety of reasons, and it is still showing on the site. So no, the numbering is correct. So they're currently at 98, and so in 2 weeks from now they will be at 100. So, but either way, check that out if you like comic book shows. A lot of really, really interesting opinions there, and I always laugh. Sebastian, you do a great job with your comedy. So that is taking us to the end of the show. Before we do close, I do want to go ahead and say thank you everybody who makes Gonna Geek such a great site. There's lots of great geeky content, including F3G2, all of the amazing podcasts, as well as community forums. There is a user named Starsaber. He is also known as Adam. I think he's an honorary agent, isn't he?
He's consultant Black Adam.
Okay, sorry, Consultant Black Adam. And he is taking the lead on the forum. So if you want to go and chat some geeky stuff, please do go to the forums. And SP, what do you want to promote? I know it's been a while since you've been on here, so we'll just give you 10-15 minutes to do that right now.
There's a ton of stuff to promote. I will definitely say, if you want to join the network, if you have some sort of product, some sort of content that you want to share, either with the written on the blog or a podcast or a vidcast or something like that, go to gonnageek.com/join, fill in the information there and send that off. And Steven or somebody from the network committee will get in touch with you and do that. Now, I will also want to just recommend go check out SpaceX because they landed again on the barge. It was awesome. And I can't believe that so much awesome stuff is happening, both with Blue Origin, with Boeing, with the capsule that they have going on, and with SpaceX. It is an awesome time to be space aficionado, and we're just a few mere years away from commercial space travel from actually happening on a scale which a normal person can actually aspire to. So just keep your eyes on all of that. We talk about it every week here, along with Bodie McBoatface and stuff like that. So
McBoatface.
Right. And you know that ship is going to have a name painted on it, Bodie McBoatface. Yeah. It's definitely going to do it. So yeah, go ahead, go to gonnageek.com/join, and then check out all the great stuff that's going on with SpaceX, Blue Origin, Boeing, and everything else.
I have a question for you, by the way, SP. How do you think that Suncast did as fill-in SP? Because I thought he did a terrific job.
He did an amazing job. He's welcome to have my seat whenever he wants it.
Oh, well, that's awful quick to give it up, aren't you?
Didn't expect that, did you?
Don't make the joke. Don't make the joke. It's too easy.
Chris, what do you want to promote?
You caught yourself right there, didn't you?
I did.
Wow, I was going to promote the network, but Stargate Pioneer beat me to it. So I guess what I want to promote is more, I want to say thank you to Steven for all of the hard work he's done on the video production work for the GonnaGeek.com podcast. If you go back about a year from now, it's amazing how much this has grown video quality wise and content and layout wise. So kudos to you, Steven. You've put in a lot of hard work. It's paid off. It looks absolutely gorgeous every week until you see my ugly face on here and it ruins all that work.
And by grown, you mean get better, get bigger, and all that jazz, not grown like, oh, I can't believe we're doing this again, right?
Well, about 10 minutes before the show, it's generally, oh, I can't believe we're doing this again, until he gets it all working properly and his computer stops fighting with him. But yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. And you're more than welcome, because I really just enjoy doing this. And Now my CPU is sitting at 80%, so I don't know what's going on here, but rapidly increasing.
It's all the talk about your mom. It's getting it even hotter.
Oh, it's getting hot.
That's
in
probably
here.
true.
Oh dear.
And JS, is there anything that you would like to promote?
I do. I want to promote this really cool cooking tool that I purchased a couple weeks ago. It's called an ANOVA sous vide machine. You guys got to check it out. It's awesome. For those who like to cook, it's a good machine. One of these things used to go for like $1,500 to $2,000. You can now get it for like $200. I think it was originally kickstarted. Really cool, nifty little tool. Maybe I could give a demo since it's a culinary geek tool.
Oh, is that the thing that you just sit in something and it heats it up?
In water. Yeah. So what it is, it's an actual turbine. It's a heating turbine. So what it does is
Nice.
it circulates water and it makes the whole, I guess, receptacle that you're putting it in maintain the exact heat at all points. Really good for cooking.
That's cool. You know what we
Super.
should do? Now that we have video, you
Science.
talked about it, Chris. Now that we have video, we need to do the usual talk show like once a month, do a cooking segment with JS. It would be awesome.
Oh, I'd love that.
Inside the kitchen with JS.
Cooking just the tip with Dr. JS.
The cooking tip with Dr.
There you
There
go.
you go.
Dipping the tip in food.
No,
That's
JS
it.
is not actually a doctor and is in fact, that is his stage name of Dr. JS. Please do not consult your doctor or the FDA in regards to Dr. JS's culinary capabilities and or doctoring capabilities. Thank you so much.
So, for episode 146 of the official GonnaGeek.com show, I'm Stephen Jondrew saying we did live! Facebook Live! Woo!
Consult your doctor, not Dr. JS.
And I am Mr. SP looking out for the awesome Facebook Live stuff. Thanks, sir.
And I'm Bodie McBoatface.
Bye!
From everyone here at the GonnaGeek.com podcast, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. We encourage you to send your feedback by email to podcast@GonnaGeek.com. You can find all of our show history at GonnaGeek.com/official podcast. And while you're there, why not head over and check out all of the geeky podcasts on the Gonna Geek Network? The music heard on this show is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next week.